Okay, so oftentimes when I hear you talk about the Mandalorian, and I hear other guys your age, and I am very good friends with a lot of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you guys talk about the Mandalorian as if it's made specifically for you, not in an exclusive way, but just sort of like, oh my god, this feels just made just for me. I used to play with these toys, blah blah, and
Right.
Mike Ryan, who knows a plenty about Star Wars, made this observation about how old Jon Favreau is, which toys he would have been playing with, and why we were seeing a lot of those characters recur even in the background in The Mandalorian, because this is the stuff of Jon Favreau's childhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, Star Wars for a long time, by less evolved fans, was considered very like white and male and bro, and there are ways in which I really push back on that, and I've heard you push back on it and
Mm-hmm.
all that sort of stuff, and Lucasfilm itself is trying to say like, no, Star Wars is for everyone. All that being said, when I watched this episode, which I did like, I was like, okay, but this episode is for the people who bought the Boba Fett action figure before Boba Fett appeared in the original trilogy because they thought he looked really cool, and then he showed up and he didn't do as much as they wanted, and that's the whole story of Boba Fett, is that he wasn't as cool as everyone wanted him to be. And then I thought he got to be tremendously cool in this episode, and I was like, 30 years later, the kids
He
who
was
bought that
very
action
cool.
figure got their cool Boba Fett moment,
Well, I think you're absolutely spot on with all of those points, and I will say, as a dad now, as sharing playtime with my kids, I have a son who's 7 and loves Star Wars, and he loves Transformers, and he loves Ninjago and thing. He has his own stuff too, but like a lot of these toys transcend generations now, and one of the things I've noticed is little kids, they love to play, they love to make up stories. They're not great at creating characters. I think it's maybe just the empathy it takes to create different types of characters. It requires a little more growing up,
Yeah.
And what Star Wars and what I think what My Little Pony and what Care Bears and what other toy lines do is they give you the characters, and they tell you what makes them different from each other, and then you make up your story, and in ways learn empathy that way, and learn who the traitorous character is, who the downbeat character is, who the upbeat character is. And I think guys like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, guys like me, women like you, we learn to tell stories by playing with the toys. And I think what you're seeing now is that manifestation on screen is a lot of the things that they grew up, they learned storytelling. And it's one reason I think a lot of fans care so much about Star Wars, is because they were active participants in the creation of Star Wars. They learned storytelling by telling stories with their toys. And so now when you see that transporter that Cara Dune drove off the cliff and, was driving through the canyon, that was just a toy. That was never in any of the movies, but it was a legitimate Kenner toy back in the day.
Right.
And it's been, again, that's one of those re-canonized things that they put into the show. A couple of years ago on Rebels, they stole some TIE fighters, and the Empire pushed a button, like a self-destruct button, that made the foils on the TIE fighter pop off, so they couldn't escape.
Uh-huh.
And that was a fixture built into the actual toys, because you know how they're structured. If you push that too far, they would instantly break. So to prevent kids from instantly breaking their toys, they made them like any amount of pressure causes them just to spring off. and it was they built that into the show. So I think like kids learn storytelling through their toys, and that's what we're seeing in The Mandalorian. It's like a toy adventure in the backyard come to life, right down to the characters shooting at each other from little rocky outcropping.
Well, it's funny. I was watching the reaction to this episode, and I figured, people would be really excited to see Boba Fett. Yes, a little thicker in his middle age, but like getting to like crack open stormtroopers like they were eggs with his like
Mm-hmm.
various weapons. I thought it was I thought his stuff was incredible. And I thought Fennec Shan was incredible. Like I thought like that gunfight, and we should say this episode is directed by Robert Rodriguez, who knows his way around a gunfight.
Mm-hmm.
That fight on the hill was a little long for my taste, but
Mm-hmm.
there are moments where I was just like, I gasped. I was like, oh, this is so great. But what's funny is when I was looking at people's reactions, they were some people were as excited about Boba Fett as they were about Slave One, his ship. And like you
Oh yeah.
talking about you know, kids and their toys and all of that helps me understand why Star Wars fans know the names of all the ships that are in Star Wars, which I don't. I did not play with Star Wars toys as a kid. Like I watched the movies obsessively. I did not play with the toys. Like I had my army of Barbies. That was what I did. But like but if Barbie had a spaceship, I would probably know the name of it. So you know, like people being really excited about these ships, about the the designation of the ships, and being able to identify them makes sense if they have like an emotional connection to a toy that they had as a kid. That's really fun to think about.
There's